In this lecture, we are going to work on the functionality where a user can create a new course. And whenever a new course is created, it should change the course's state and it should add that new course in the courses array. Let's see how we can achieve that. So let's go to VS Code. So what we want is, here we have the courses state. In there, we have courses property, which is storing an array, and in that array, we have two course objects. Now, whenever a new course is created, that new course should be added to this courses array. So for that, first of all, let's go ahead and let's create an action. So here we have one action called show create form. Actually, I'm simply going to call it as show form. Okay, let me save the changes here, and in the selector I'm going to call it as get show form. All right, in the reducer, now we do not have any show create form action, we have show form action. So I'm going to import that and I'm going to pass that to this reducer function. Then we are using this get show form selector inside this course component. So here it should be get show form. So if I scroll up, the selector name is get show form and the action name is show form, right? So here this should be get show form, because here we are selecting a selector and the name of the action is show form. So let's change that. Let's save the changes. Then we are also using it inside the AddCourseComponent. So let's go to AddCourseComponent.ts. Here we are dispatching an action. So it should be show form, because we have changed the action name, and we should be importing show form from courses.action, and that action we want to dispatch. So here I have simply changed the action name and I have changed the selector name. So I'm just updating the names everywhere wherever we need to change the action name and the selector name. Let's go to the terminal just to check if we have any issues. So as you can see, the application has been compiled successfully, and in the UI also we do not see any error. All right, now what we are going to do is we are going to create another action. So let me close these files for now, and let's go to coursesaction.ts, and here I'm going to create a new action. I'll say export const, and I'm going to call this action as create course. And to create course action, again we are going to use create action function. There we are going to specify the value for the type of the action. So the value for type of the action is going to be create course, and whenever this create course action is dispatched, we want to send the new course data to the course reducer. So for that, we are going to use props, and to use this props, we need to import it. It is already imported here. And here we are going to specify what type of data we want to dispatch when this action is dispatched. So I want to pass an object where I want to have a course property where the type of that course should be course. And we need to import this course interface from this file. All right, so the action has been created. Let's save the file. Now let's go to the reducer. And here inside this, we are going to handle an action. Now what is the action name? The action name is create course. So we are going to import it from courses.action file. And what do we want to do when that action is dispatched? So we want to execute this callback function from where we are going to return a new state. Now this callback function, it is going to receive the current state and the payload if we have passed anything. So we are going to receive it as the second argument. So I'm going to call the second parameter as action. Now in this state, first of all, we will extract all the properties from the current state, and then we are going to update the courses state. So we know that it is an array. Now in this array, we want to have all the courses from the previous state, and then the new course which we are receiving, we need to add it in this array. Remember that here I'm not going to use push method to push a new course in the current course state, because we should never change the current state. We should always return a new state. the current state should not be modified. So that's why I cannot use push method. And also for each course, we also want to have an ID. Now, how are we going to calculate the ID? So for that, what we will do is, we know that in our case, ID is a numeric value. So here I'm going to create a course variable, and to that I'm going to assign an object, and in that object I want to get all the properties from this action. So this action here, it is going to store an object, right? So here if I say action dot course, you see we have this course property on that action. From that I want to extract all the properties, and here again it is not reading it. Let's go to the action. Here we are passing the name as course, and then also we need to call it. Okay, that's why it was not taking that. So now we should not have that error. So whatever object we have passed with the payload, from that object we want to extract all the properties. Now in that object we are not going to have an ID property, that we have to manually generate. So for that, first of all, in the model, let's go to courses model, and there let's make this ID as optional, because ID will be auto generated. So whenever we are going to create a course object, there while passing the data we might not specify the ID value. So that's why I'm making it as optional. And let's close this file. Let's go to the reducer again. So here we are going to calculate the ID manually. So here I'll say course.id. So here I'm creating a new property called ID. And to calculate the value of this ID, what I'm going to do is I will read the length of the courses array. So for that I can say state.courses, and whatever will be the length, to that I want to add 1, and that should be the ID for the new course. Okay, so currently in our state, in our course state, we have 2 objects. So the length of this array will be 2. When we are adding a third course, there the ID of the course should be 3. So we are simply adding 1 to the current length of this courses array, and that will become the ID of the new course. And now what we can do is, to this courses array, first we are going to extract all the courses from the previous state. So from the previous state, if we want to get all the courses, we can say state.courses. So from this courses, we want to extract all the courses which we have in the previous state. Those courses will become an element of this new array. And then in that new array, I'm going to add this course, which we are going to get in the payload. So here if you see, we are creating a new course array. We are not mutating the course array from the previous state. And this is one thing which you need to remember. You should never update the previous state. You should always return a new state. Let's save the changes here. And with this, the action and the reducer is ready. Now we have to dispatch this action, this create course action, whenever this form is getting submitted. So for that, what we have done is, in the add course component, we have this on create course method. Currently there, we are simply logging the values which we have input in the course. But instead of doing that, the first thing which I'm going to do here is I'm going to check if the form is valid or not. So here I can say this dot course form dot valid. So here we have a valid property. If the form is not valid, then we don't want to submit the form and we don't want to create the course. So for example, the form will not be valid because let's say the user has not input the title for the course. And since title is required, and if the title is not entered, in that case, this course form will not be valid. So in such cases, we don't want to submit the form and create a new course. So in that case, we will simply return. Otherwise, if the form is valid, that means we can go ahead and we can create the course. And to create the course, we are going to dispatch an action. So for that, we are going to use the store. On that, we are going to call the dispatch function. And here we want to dispatch an action called create course. And we are going to import this create course from course.action file. And we need to call it as a function. Now here, when we are dispatching this create course action, it is also expecting a payload. So it is expecting an object. where we need to have course property with a course value. So let's go ahead and let's create that course object. So here I'm going to create a property called course, and this is going to be an object. And actually what we can also do is, here I can simply say this dot course form dot value, right? This value object, it is going to store all the properties which we have in the course model. So we have already seen that in our last lecture when we logged it. In the value object, we had title property, description property, we had image property, we had author property and price property. So that same type of object we want to pass to the reducer in order to create a new course. So let's see if that works. Otherwise, we will change the logic. Let's save the changes here. Let's go to our application. Let's click on this create course button and let's try to create a test course. So for the description also, I will put test, and for everything I'll put test here. Price, let's say 29.99, and I'm not going to select any image. And when I click on this create course, and if I close this, no course has been created. Let's go to console. We do not have any errors. So now we will go to Redux. Okay, here we are going to debug what is going wrong. So in the courses, we still have only 2 courses. So the action was not dispatched. Let's click on this create course. So this show form action has been dispatched. Let me enter. Okay, I think the form was not valid because the minimum length for the title is 6. So we have added that validation. That's why the form was not submitted. So here, let's simply say Node.js course. Okay, let's give some description. Okay, and let's select an author. Let's say John Smith. Let's select a price. Let's say 49.99. Okay, we will not select any image, and let's click on this create course button. So create course action has been dispatched. If we see the courses array now, there we have 3 courses now, and the third course has ID 3, title Node.js course, description is this is a Node.js course. So all the values which we entered in the form, with that a new object has been created, and now in this courses we have 3 courses object. Let me close this for now, and let me also close this form. So you will see that that third course has also been rendered in the UI. So in this way, now we are able to create new course. Let me create one more course, and for that I have some dummy data. So let me copy this title, I'll paste it here. Then let's go back and copy the description, and let's put it in the description. Then for the author, let's put this name. For the price, I'm going to provide 69.99, and I'm not going to select any image. Let's click on this create course. So a new course should have been created, and if I scroll down, you can see that course in the background. So that course has been created. Now one more thing which I want to do is, once the course is created, this form should be automatically closed. And also if I click on this clear form button, you see it is clearing the form. So the clear form button is working, but when the create course button is clicked, it should also close this model pop-up. So let's go back to VS Code, and from here, after the course has been dispatched and it has been added, what I also want is, I want to dispatch the show form action, and to that I'm going to pass an object where I'll have a value property of type false. Okay, let's save the changes. Let's go to our app again and let's try to create another course. Let's simply say new course. And now when I click on this create course button, it should create that course and it should also close this form. As you can see, the course has been created and rendered in the UI, and the form is also closed. So in this lecture, we learned how we can create new course and change the course's state by adding that new course in that course's state. So remember that initially we have two courses. Now whenever we will try to create a new course, a new state will be returned by the reducer. In that new state, we will have these two courses, and then the new course which we are trying to create, that will also be added in that array, and it will return a new courses state with three elements, with three courses. So whenever we change the state using a reducer, we never modify, we never change the current state. We always create a new state and we return that new state with the updated value. So this is very important to understand. All right, so this is all from this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.